Okay, to start off, I'd like to get an idea. If you raise your hand, those of you who have taken a course in orthodox, that is regular college, micro or macroeconomics, would you raise your hands? Oh, very good. Okay, because how many here have read beyond boehm-bawerk? Just to get an idea of how much you've read on Austrian stuff. Certainly less. Okay. That's a good. Okay, I propose to start with the first theme here is Crusoe economics, as Mary Lou said, where one of the reasons for this is that the format. I'm new at this thing too. I'm not new in teaching economics, but new in this sort of format. So grouping our way here. But to start with to show one of the things that shows the distinctiveness of Austrian economics is the method by which it develops the discipline. And this is very different from other economic schools. So we start off with Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe was landed on this so-called desert island. It's not really a desert. I mean, if it was really a desert, he probably would have died fairly quickly. It's an island with resources and so forth. And he has technological knowledge, quote unquote, of things to do. So first point, I think, or theme is how most of the economic concepts can be developed just by looking at Crusoe vis-a-vis nature. In other words, the idea of this thing is to start off very simply with one individual, without bringing in other people yet, which makes it, of course, more complicated. One individual vis-a-vis nature and what happens. So I don't know, I could give a spiel first and then have a discussion. I'd rather sort of get a feel now what any of you think, start the discussion off. What concepts can be approached through this kind of method? You start off with Crusoe, he's there, it's day one, he's been shipwrecked, he's standing there on this island, and now what? Okay. Can we start with more on this? In other words, what do you think, what concepts do you think can be developed? What economic concepts?
I think he's rapidly going to come to a conclusion if he sits there waiting for the welfare state to look after it. He's not going to get very far.
That's for sure. Anything more concrete?
He's got to get off his ass and start working.
Exactly. Okay.
How is it going to shelter?
In other words, he's got certain goals he's got to achieve, right? Pretty fast, obviously, in this situation.
He's going to arrange them in hierarchical structure. What's most important immediately?
Right. His priorities. Okay.
Food first.
Right. Food first. Presumably shelter next. Because you start with
maybe water first.
Water.
Yeah, water. An island. You've got to find some fresh water.
Pure life. Water first. Yes. Then food. Then shelter.
Yeah.
He owns everything, presumably. He doesn't have to worry about the fact that other people may.
Yeah, there's no other people yet. I know. Well, see that we get. That's a little bit later on. The question is what ownership is. What do you mean by ownership? So
it's all there available for his use. So
let's postpone that until we get to Friday. Friday makes his or her appearance.
And really, even if he doesn't own the island, even if he knows to begin with the island is wholly owned by somebody else, he would act the same way. Because he would want to support himself.
Rather than start off an unknown island,
yes, but it's important to make that. I should point that out.
Okay, so he's got.
Friday's just arrived.
Nobody's mapping big one. All right. Okay, so he's got certain priorities, as Lisa said. He's got to arrange them in some way. And one of the things, or one of the concepts in economics, most schools have this. Most so-called orthodox or mainstream, or I call orthodox economics, has this. It's kind of differently organized, as we'll see later. So he's got priorities. Okay, he's got choices. He's got water, food, shelter. Now these are not. This part's not broken down. He's got food, pretty much. As you go along, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Swiss Family Robinson, which is sort of like this. A Swiss family named Robinson gets on there, and they start like this, and after a year or two, they got a whole big thing going, like boardwalks and gardens and that sort of stuff. So as you go along, you get more affluent. Your food requirements become more specialized, right? Then you look for Wheaties or whatever stuff. But Crusoe, presumably starting off, doesn't have this problem, okay? And then the clothes. All right, whatever. So you've got this. Let's call it in economics a value scale. Okay, a scale of goals or ends or purposes. Now, one of the things, by the way, this is sort of interesting. When I was first, I teach at a place called Polytechnic Institute in New York, or it used to be called Brooklyn Poly. And when I first came into the department, the social science department, they knew I had these crazy ideas, bitterly opposed to laissez-faire and so forth and so on. This is a department of half Marxists and half liberals. So they had me give a lecture, and I started off with goals and ends and means and that sort of stuff, so the basic axioms of Austrian economics. And they fought this bitterly step by step. They refused to admit that people had goals, for example. Because I think even though in their regular scholarly work, much less their daily life, they realize that people have goals and they act on them and so forth and so on. But they were scared stiff that they've conceded one point. That they have to wind up at laissez-faire.
Which logically they have to.
That's right. They sort of sense this, right? So it's really weird. Hard to sit there for an hour and a half and argue whether people have motives or goals or not. Anyway, that's okay. So they've got goals, and of course, by saying this, they're also assuming that people have goals, they have choices, they can do something about it, which is the Austrian concept of action. Okay, so the whole concept of action comes right in here. That people act, and in order to act, you have to have goals or purposes or ends in mind. Okay, so that's wrapped up in the concept of action, and priorities, and value scales or preference scales for goals. Right, so this is one of the things that will go along here is that one of the problems which cause confusion in economics is linguistic or semantic. That the sort of words that are used have historical reasons for it. In other words, people start, for example, economics began, didn't really begin, but systematically began early 19th century England, which was agricultural. So a lot of the words are agriculturally based, which we have a different language now, so it's a little difficult. We'll see as we go along. For various reasons, this value scale, preference scale, is called economics utility. This already causes confusion because most people, when you think of utility, think of something which is useful, and it's not this. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the subjective valuations on the part of Crusoe in this case. So, the value scale, or the utility scale. You see the confusion that can come in when critics of the market, for example, people like Galbraith or whatever. Well, Galbraith, by the way, lay at your door here in this country. You're responsible for this joke. Anyway.
I object.
You object. Yeah. We got plenty of problems too. Okay.
I never bought his book out.
Okay.
I read it, but I never bought it.
Is Galbraith pronounced Galbraith or Galbraith up here? What is it?
I hear it both ways. Galbraith.
I
don't think it really matters.
Okay, it's not a vital point. At any rate, so the people like him would say, well, these are not certain goods and services which he likes he would call useful in some kind of objective sense, right? There's other things which other people like are not useful. Then you can have a quarrel about whether, for example, back in the 1950s when he got launched, there were Cadillacs those days had tail fins, if you remember. And there was a big hysteria among people like Galbraith, other left liberals, attacking tail fins as being evil, as being wasteful. I wasn't a great tail fin fan myself. I never saw anything wrong with them. So the point is that utility then doesn't mean in economics what somebody says is objectively useful, whatever that's supposed to mean. It means whatever people is useful to them, or what they would like to achieve, what goals they like. Whether other people call that wrong, irrational, wasteful, whatever. In other words, utility in economics, and certainly in Austrian economics, has a subjective connotation. It's subjective valuation on the part of the person, the actor, the individual, the consumer. Okay, so that doesn't mean there aren't such things objectively useful or not useful. The point is that from the point of looking at economics, looks at it from the point of view of the individual actor. All right, this, by the way, was always a problem when working with Randians in Austrian economics. Rand believing in objective value. So how can you have a theory of subjective value? This was a big problem for Randians. And of course, the answer is we're not talking about. This is not an ethical course in ethics. Or economics is not a ethical discipline. If you're dealing with ethics, you can say something might be objectively good or bad, or useful or not useful. economics analyzes the individual actor as he or she acts, and so that the value is the valuation on the part of this person.
In that sense, it's value-free and being objective
Yeah,
values.
that's right. Exactly. So it's value-free on the part of the economist in the sense that we're not imposing our values on the individuals. Okay, so that's trying to analyze the situation. Another thing about Austrian economics, which is I think unique, is that what we're doing here is we're taking certain common sense facts, such as people have goals and purposes, and basing an economic discipline on that formal fact without going to the question of what his purposes are. In the case of Crusoe, we're talking about food and shelter, etc. But basically, we don't really care what the purposes of the individual are. The fact that he has certain purposes and goals to achieve, that's all we need for the discipline. So we're not interested in economics what he should be valuing, as I said, or whether he's a nut for doing it or something. That's not whether he should be eating butter or cornflakes or something. That's another discipline, aesthetics, ethics, whatever you want to call it. So that's one of the things which find confusion which come in. Okay, so we're just really beginning with this. It proves that we have a value scale here, and we have action, the concept of action. Anything else anybody can see as a concept is applied in action. Right? Crusoe. Okay, what has he got? He's got to try to keep away from the actual content, you always have that example, like he shoots deep and gets a bow and arrow or something, or catches fish with a net. Basically, the idea is what sort of thing, what sort of concepts come in here. What has he got? He's got his own person. He's got himself, and he's only going to achieve his goals by his own person. There's nobody else there. He's going to be doing it. You've got personal energy. And you've got technological knowledge. In a sense, they're combined, of course, but the point is you can conceptually say you've got technological knowledge. Technological, of course, in this case is not high tech. Computer programming is not going to do him a hell of a lot of good here. It doesn't. Technological knowledge of how to catch fish, building a net, getting a bow and arrow, whittling a stick, and all that sort of stuff. This is low tech, but it's tech. Okay, so you've got technological knowledge. And he's got natural resources. He looks around, sees what's going on. There's trees, there's berries, you can eat strawberries, there's fish, there's water, and so forth. All these things are nature given. Okay, so we've got nature given resources and natural resources. So we're already getting concepts, economic concepts are coming in here. Now, again, in economics, the semantics are different. The language was set in the early 19th century, more or less. Personal energy is defined as, in economics, labor. Right? Now, the problem here is the way, for example, and there used to be a big discussion or controversy in the history of the Anglo-Jackson period in the United States, the 1830s. Were the Jacksonians labor leaders, or were they some sense like the present? Were they early ancestors of the New Deal, or semi-Marxist or something? They said they were in favor of labor. They kept talking about labor all the time. Now, since Marx, most people think of labor or laborers as being industrial workers, assembly line types, construction workers, whatever. Labor in the early 19th century, 18th century sense meant anybody who uses personal energy in production. They haven't defined production yet. Anybody who transforms resources, what it means, into using personal energy. So this, in the modern world, would mean not just industrial workers, but the president of General Motors along with the assembly worker. Anybody who's using personal energy in the production process as a laborer. So it's already, you see, the causes all sorts of problems if you're looking at current 20th century terminology and economics, which has something 19th century concepts. Natural resources is also a similar problem. Natural resources are defined in economics as land. And again, so there's again a difference here. One is the land includes water, rivers, fish where the fish are, includes offshore oil at this point. It doesn't just mean land in the sense that we're used to it. This body of stuff, soil and stuff. Now it includes space. You get something out of space. include radio frequencies and all that. All this is land. Land meaning nature given. Okay. So on the one hand, it includes much more than we common sense nowadays think of as land. On the other hand, it also doesn't include buildings, for example. This building is not considered land technically. Building is man-made. So what would be considered land would be the ground underneath the building. Okay. So that's.
What about cows and things? Would that be land?
That's wild. Yeah, I think wild animals
Or land?
are land, right? I think. Yeah. Of course, domesticated.
Harvest them.
Yeah, domesticated would be
They're
right.
not.
Would be something else, which I haven't got to that yet. What something else is. Okay. As soon as man enters into the picture and transforms things, then you have something else. The land is always there, of course. You always have some ground to stand on. So land always enters into the picture, but there's also this other thing. Okay, another thing. Anything more discussion on this? I don't want to keep talking more comments. It's, problem with that? Extra.
There's a problem with me with it right now, because I would distinguish between unowned and owned natural resources, but I don't see the distinction distinguishing between an apple tree and the apples it bears and the piece of land that it grows on. Really, I don't really see.
No, that's the distinction. Yeah.
I mean, I see certain reasons for distinguishing, but not in a general category.
Well, apple would be nature given.
Not if it's growing, if it's a domestic orchard.
Precisely.
I don't quite see the difference.
No, at this stage though, the assumption is that the island is unowned.
Yeah,
Then,
ownership doesn't even come into the picture
yeah,
yet.
so it's not.
We haven't even defined ownership.
There's only one man on the world.
That's right.
That's
One
why
man.
it's inclusive.
Right, precisely. So uninhabited.
So everything
Yeah,
that's there
off the beaten
is.
So everything physical on the island is land.
Is land. And surrounding it,
Yeah.
and underneath
That's
it, and
right.
all that's there.
And the other question I have is, you haven't put a word opposite technical knowledge yet, are you conservative?
I don't think so. I think I'm sticking with that. Actually,
Because I include that with labor. I mean, in the sense that the old idea of labor was to the executives and so on are laborers too, the inventors and so on, and the technical knowledge and the personal energy cannot really be distinguished and separated. And I think they're both laborers. I mean, they aren't from a Marxist point of view. I agree, but they should be.
I don't know. See, the problem is that the things about technological knowledge which are different from other resources. Once you get it, you don't lose it. Right? In other words, I wouldn't say it's non-scarce, but once it's
not. Your personal energy is consumed.
Yeah.
Is
used up.
It's used up.
You get tired.
That's true. Technical knowledge is not.
technical knowledge is
true.
once you got it.
And once the recipe is being created,
That's right.
it can be passed on.
Recipe is another word for it. Mises uses that. So, right. So it's a little different. And conceptually, of course, technological knowledge is important. It's growth of it and stuff like that.
Okay, all I was thinking of is you think of these basic categories of economic resources, and the one is land and the other is labor, and so technical knowledge, if you're going to split it that way, would have to go in with labor.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Obviously, nature doesn't have technological knowledge. Okay. So, right? Represents that way. Okay, another thing, of course, that he finds this is I like to start off my classes in microeconomics with what I call the Garden of Eden model. Okay, the Garden of Eden, either mythological or actual, there was superabundance. There was no scarcity. The definition of the Garden of Eden is it was superabundant. If you want to have a Pepsi trickling down your throat, you wish for it, you snap your fingers, and by God, there it is. Okay. That's the Garden of Eden. There are certain logical problems with the Garden of Eden model. Supposing what I wished for and what this gentleman wished for clash. Okay. But aside from that, by definition, everything is superabundant. If everything is superabundant, then there's no problem with private property ownership. As a matter of fact, no problem with price or scarcity or anything. There's no economics because if you want something, it's there. Okay? If you want a hi-fi set, it's there playing Bach, whatever you want. So that presumably mankind was in the Garden of Eden in some sense originally, and was kicked out for various sins and heresies. So what Crusoe faces, of course, starkly, what we all face, is the world of scarcity. All things are scarce, all resources, all goods and services, etc. And because they're scarce, you have to allocate, you have to have a value scale. Crusoe can't just say, okay, I want a nice suit of clothes from Brooks Brothers, and I want to, baked Alaska and so forth. He ain't going to get it. I mean, so he has to do all sorts of stuff. He has to allocate his time, has to allocate his energy, has to allocate, has to have priorities, and do the first things first, and so forth and so on. So so we live in a world of scarcity. Of course, we have less scarce. Our scarcity is less than, say, Crusoe's, obviously. Crusoe has an extreme scarce problem. He dies tomorrow if he doesn't get food quickly. We're not in that bad shape, obviously, but we still have a world of scarcity. If things weren't scarce, everything would be free. It would be like wishing for Pepsi and putting it down our throat. Now, about their intellectual fashions, I don't want to shock you people, but their intellectual world or fashions, sort of like ladies' hemlines. Every 5 years, some new gimmick comes in, and everybody follows it. And one of the few benefits of advanced age is you see all these things come and go. The same junk, comes back 10 years later and it drops out. So about 10 years ago, during the period of the New Left, for a couple of years there was a big hue and cry, not so much among economists, among some New Left economists, mostly among intellectuals, sociologists, people of that ilk, English professors, that we now live in a post-scarcity age. All these things, all this economic stuff about prices and all that, it all was true until 1960, 1968. But now this is 1968, by God, we live in a post-scarcity age and everything is great. We don't need all this stuff is now obsolete. So I had a debate one time with a neo-Marxist professor around that period. He was giving this whole line of chatter. By the way, the conclusion of it was always you have to have socialism, whatever the problem is. Right? We live in a post-scarcity age, therefore there'd be total unemployment, therefore we have to have socialism, or something like that. It's kind of nonsense. But anyway, so he was telling me, we're now living in a post-scarcity age, all these economic screws are obsolete. So I said, look, Professor Averill, I guess his name was, if we live in a post-scarcity age, why don't you burn your salary check? Well, what's the point of having an income? You know what his answer was? It was unbelievable. He said, well, it's because I too am brainwashed by the capitalist ethic, capitalist ethos.
It's rough.
It's really rough. So, a few years later, the same people were saying that the post-scarcity thing drops out. The same people were saying all resources are dying. Like in 5 years, we won't have any resources, and therefore we have to have socialism. Right? It's amazing. I mean, it's just.
Well, it's certainly true. Socialism will cure the post-scarcity age.
Right.
There's such a thing at the moment because we're sure there won't be an abundance after then kind of thing.
Right, exactly. It'll cure the excess of affluence.
Right.
So anyway, we live in a world of scarcity, and as I say, as the world progresses, we have less things are less scarce, but it's still there. Okay, so that comes in. Obviously, it comes in all of Crusoe's action. In fact, action is really just. And you need action because of scarcity, because you haven't achieved your goals yet. Okay, he looks around, he's got things to reach the goal. He's got natural resources, he's got personal knowledge, energy, technological knowledge, and these are his resources, or means, equal means to achieve the ends. Resources, means, the other way of saying the same thing here. He's got priorities, he's got goals, he has to achieve them, he has to use these resources and allocate them, hopefully in a proper manner. Okay. Another thing is that all this takes time, right? Action takes time. There's no such thing as acting in a timeless vacuum. So each one of these things will take a different amount of time. He's got to figure out it's taking 3 hours, 6 hours, 3 days, 2 weeks. So time enters into the picture. One might think that it's kind of self-evident, but orthodox economics or mainstream economics, microeconomics, if you read textbooks, time washes out. Everything is moving around a timeless universe. There's already a key distinction. There's only a half hour into this thing. Key distinction between Austrian economics and everybody else. Namely, we incorporate time into the analysis.
Could you almost put time along with those other things on the natural resources, personal energy, and
time? You have to allocate time. Okay. And things move through time. Action takes place through time, of course. Right. But
those aren't actions. Those are resources. Say time's a resource.
Yeah, time's a resource. Yeah. And one of the problems is, that, by the way, I don't keep talking about Randians, but one of the problems with Randian theory, okay, which is totally tangential, is the Randians tend to think as if time is unlimited. There's no problem with allocating time, and that you do one career for 20 years, they move on to another career for another 30 years, so on and so on. Certain as if time were sort of not a problem. Okay.
You must be getting more acutely aware of that than some of us, perhaps.
Yes. But there's always, time is always scarce, and that's anyway, okay, so there's, then there's also another factor which enters in, which again distinguishes Austrians from everybody else, namely, life is uncertain. Okay? We know certain things can happen, we can predict certain things, but it's uncertain. We don't, Crusoe, might be a hurricane tomorrow with a whole, stock of fish or something, strawberries gets wiped out. So, and we have uncertainty. So one of the things that, again, distinguishes Austrian theory is the Austrians incorporate uncertainty into the picture, into the analysis at the very beginning. Life is uncertain. Things can change. We don't have perfect knowledge of the future. Some things. This gives we now already have deviations within the Austrian movement. Some Austrians are now going too far, sort of edging into nihilism, and say like Professor Lachmann of South Africa, and has gotten to the point of saying that we can't know anything about the future. The future is sort of like a total blank wall. Saying we can't predict or forecast anything, which I think is around the bend. So that's. But basically, the Austrian view is that there's no certainty in the future. We can know some things, we can predict some things, etc. In contrast, neoclassical economics, or standard textbook economics, which is essentially Walrasian at this point. Leon Lala, Swiss economist, wrote in 1970s, 1880s, approximately. His famous work was published the same year as, I think, 1873 or something around there, in early 1870s. In Lausanne, Switzerland, neglected during his lifetime, I think properly so myself. Rediscovered by Pareto, who was a brilliant sociologist, a very interesting person anyway. Italian Pareto, and which has now become standard, more or less standard microeconomics, and many will keep referring to this. And one of the things which the Paretian and Walrasians, one of their theories is that everybody's got perfect knowledge of the present, perfect knowledge of everybody else, perfect knowledge of the future. There's no uncertainty. There's no time either, of course. If there's time, in a sense, drops out. Time becomes just. Let me put it this way: perfect knowledge, perfect certainty. I see. If you look at it this way, you might think this is all crackers, bonkers. But this is the orthodox mainstream economics at this point. Perfect certainty. And if you live in a world, so what does this mean? It means a world without change. So we know, or change can be perfectly forecast, which really means without change. Then time becomes something very different from what human beings are experiencing. Time becomes an endless round of everybody doing the same things. Knowledge is frozen. It's like a freeze frame. Okay? If knowledge is frozen, of course, everybody gets perfect knowledge eventually because there's no change. So nothing new enters the picture. Anyway, this is the world which the Walrasians depict. And this is why you have all the mathematics and the equations and the diagrams, because if everything is, there's no change, there's no uncertainty, there's a perfect knowledge, everybody's got perfect knowledge, then you can just crank it out. There's no action. Action really disappears in the Walrasian universe. We'll get to that, explain that more later. So this is a very different kind of economics. Okay, uncertainty then means that each individual person, Crusoe and everybody else, is an uncertainty bearer. He's got to meet uncertainty. And this function of meeting uncertainty, which we'll explain later on in much more detail, is called entrepreneurship. He knows his goals. He more or less has a good inventory of the resources, but now he's got to act on it, and by doing that, he's got to forecast, hopefully correctly. He's got to meet conditions and try to achieve them. If he makes too many mistakes, he's dead. Okay? Or in our case, we make too many mistakes, we suffer monetary losses. So this is the entrepreneur is the uncertainty bearer. Another thing about Crusoe is given the goal, let's say his goal is getting a gallon of clean water. Given the goal, he wants to achieve the goal as rapidly as possible. Okay, by definition, it follows the definition of action. You've got a goal, you'd rather have a gallon of water now than wait 2 weeks. Okay. So this immediately brings in the Austrian concept of time preference. There's a lot of hassle about time preference. And basically it means, I think properly understood, it's an extremely important concept that the person, given the goal, the person prefers getting the goal now than getting it later. Otherwise it's not really a goal. Something else is intervening here. There's all sorts of disputes about that. A characteristic one is something like this. It's now the winter. Go back to the pre-refrigerator age, and people used ice boxes. In the winter, you don't need ice boxes. You don't need it very much. You really need it in the summer. Therefore, if this is December, you prefer getting the ice in July than you would getting it now. So doesn't this contradict the concept of time preference, the preferring something now to later? And the answer is it doesn't contradict it because it's not the same problem. In other words, we're given the goal, we're given the good, the thing itself, and the resource itself, the object that we're valuing. We're assuming a homogeneous object. In other words, we're assuming it's the same serviceability, the same usefulness. Otherwise, it's a different object. So that ice in the summer becomes a different good, even though it's the same physical object, same cube. It's a different good in the summer than it is in the winter. It performs different functions. It's much more important in the summer. It has nothing to do with time. Just that it's hotter in the summer. You need ice more. So the answer to that is simply they're two different products. Given the product, given the good, given the thing, given the equal usefulness, people prefer getting it now, getting it later.
Surely that's only true if the amount of labour to get it is the same. I mean, for example, if you've got a choice of either paying for something now or letting someone buy it for you free of charge tomorrow, you don't need it till the day after. Then, So I think labour, it's the total amount of resources used, and time is just a resource the same.
Sure, you're balancing the end of the goal, the value scale, but what you have to do to get it. Yeah, absolutely, sure. It's one of the keys. People prefer less labor extended than time. Right.
I want an easy life.
Right.
Don't we both?
Right. Any other comments on this? I'm going to make this in a monologue instead of a temptation. All right. A good, by the way, we haven't defined a good. That's important. It's always been used. A good is a thing, either a commodity or a service, either tangible or intangible, which consists of an entity which is valued by somebody, obviously, otherwise it's not a good, either by Crusoe or by us or somebody. An entity consisting of n homogeneous units. This relates to the ice problem. Let's see. The n can be anything from 1 up to 100 million. The idea is that the units have to be homogeneous. In other words, they're the same. So if you have a grade of paper clip, certain size paper clips, you have a box of 50 paper clips. Each paper clip is a unit, or the box is a unit. Units can vary. But the idea is that each each unit is homogeneous to the other unit. Yeah.
Well, doesn't your illustration about the ice cube contradict the idea that anything could be homogeneous? You know, you got a kilowatt hour of electricity at 3:30 in the afternoon on a cold winter day when everybody's watching a football game. Is quite a different thing from a kilowatt hour of electricity, say, at 2 a.m. in the morning in the springtime.
That's right.
But it's never the same.
I don't think it's ever the same. I don't think it's ever the same. I meant the ice cube in July will be any given ice cube. See, the thing is, it's up to the person. It's up to the subject in the sense that the individual. Here I am. I don't care which block of ice. Let's say it's the same size, it's the same hour. I'm buying a block of ice. I don't care which block of ice I'm getting. It's homogeneous to me. It's physically homogeneous, and it's homogeneous to me. But you can't tell. You see, as an outside observer, an economist or statistician, you can't really be sure that it's homogeneous because different individuals might have different valuations on them. That's the point. See, one of the things about Austrian economics is that it provides and one of the reasons why it's not popular among economists is it provides very little room for economists to do much. See, as well, economists can teach this, can explain the beauty of it. We can't advise government for various reasons. We probably know already. We can't advise businessmen either. We haven't got really any. There's very little job opportunities for Austrian economists except teaching and writing and whatever. Say. And so the economist doesn't have that. The outside observer doesn't have that much of a role because you can't really say that. Well, let's take an example. And classical economics is totally different. They say this is the objective unit, and therefore it's the same. Good. Let's take. I think John Stuart Mill had this as a famous classical economist as well as philosopher, lousy philosopher, not too hot a classical economist either. At any rate, he's a very bright guy until he's screwed up. Mill is looking at the market. He has a concept we call economic man, a very pernicious concept. And he's looking at the market. He sees that according to the economic analysis, goods tend to have the same price. Okay, we haven't gotten the price yet, but it's pretty clear now that if you have a block of ice, two people, 3 or 4 ice dealers in the same block, let's say, the prices will tend to be about equal because if Zeke over here is selling ice for, whatever, $50 a pound. I don't know how you sell ice anymore. $50 a cube. Somebody else is selling it for $30 a cube. The guy, Zeke is not going to last very long. Okay, I mean, he's going to have to lower the price in order to stay in business. So Mill is observing the world, and he's saying, well, there are situations where they have different prices for the same good continue almost permanently. Therefore, it's irrational. Therefore, these people are non-economic men. They're wrong. They're whatever.
When they're just not following his ideas.
Well, yeah, they're. And the point of what he was looking at the physical object rather than the subjective evaluations of the individual consumers. To many of these consumers, they're different. The same thing might be a different good, or the different good things might even be the same good. And for example,
there's extensions to it. I mean, the one ice house to charge more money might give premium delivery service, and the other you have to pick it up.
Exactly.
The good is all those things together.
Precisely. That's another big Austrian insight. When you're buying something, you're not just buying a physical object, you're buying the whole package, the ambiance, whether the guy is friendly or not, whether the service, whether he gives credit, a whole bunch of stuff which is involved, which most people don't look at. For example, New York, they have a very posh restaurant of Treatise, one of the poshest in the country, and they sell ice cream. Let's assume that probably it's not the same ice cream. Let's assume for a minute it's the same ice cream as McDonald's or Breyers or something, a fast food store. And yet, Treatise will charge 10 times as much as McDonald's for the same ice cream. And the reason is you're not just buying the ice cream, you're buying the whole ambiance. You're buying the servile waiter, you're buying the expectation of maybe seeing Jackie Onassis at the next table and stuff like that. You don't get it at McDonald's.
You're also getting a more comfortable chair, luxurious.
Exactly, precisely. You're buying the whole package. Right, precisely.
In that case, though, the good is the ice cream. Period. That's the only thing that can be defined as a good.
No, in this case, good is the whole package. The reason why it's a different price, and it stays at a different price, is you're buying the ice cream plus the whole service, the whole ambiance. whole
Different good.
Yeah, different
Totally
He's saying
different
like
good
a
device.
It's not a
nice
homogeneous good. In other words, the ice cream, even though it might be the same physical ice cream.
It's simply not comparable to what's in McDonald's at all.
Don't you
Okay,
think
so-
Apples and oranges.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand this.
Yeah. No, no.
The, ice cream is a good. When you add all of these other things to where you buy your ice cream,
Right.
that's also a good, but it's not the same good as just ice cream.
Yeah, it's the ice cream is the whole package. You're buying, I mean, you don't buy the pure ice cream, is what I'm asking, I guess. You're buying, I mean,
You never do.
Yeah, you never
Ice
do.
cream
And-
itself is never
Right.
good, in a sense, because
Exactly.
you're always buying a package.
it's more
whenever
convenient
you
to
buy it.
assume it's the same good if everything else washes out.
But then why, I mean, how can this definition have any meaning at all then? Because that's always the case.
No, it's not always the case. You can
Well, in fact, we're going back to what he was saying about ice cubes. I mean,
Yeah.
an ice cube in winter is not a lot of value to you because all you do is put your milk outside
Yeah.
on the porch instead. But in summer you can't do that. So
Well,
there's
maybe-
little utility for ice cream.
Let me put it this way.
What you can do is
But
you
ice
compare-
is the same for ice.
That's not my,
It is
that's not my
exactly the
point.
same analogous in this situation.
No, I don't have any difficulty understanding why things have different values. I'm trying to understand the definition of good because that's used all the time.
Yeah.
This implies, when you say an entity consisting of n homogeneous
Right.
units, that's supposed to imply that goods are the same in the market, right?
Right.
You have ice and it's ice, period.
Yeah, no.
But
Maybe-
you might say that those glasses of water tomorrow when nobody's here
Yeah.
is a different good.
Yes.
But right now there's 7 units of homogeneous supply
Yeah,
right
but
there.
these 6 glasses,
That's
I don't
a
care which
good
glass I pick
seven
up.
units.
These are homogeneous to me, at least.
Right.
If you really want to nitpick,
Yeah.
there's a degree here
Yeah.
beyond which, because even the glass that you've got your hand on is closer to you, and it is slightly better
Yeah.
for you than the other one that's further away.
Right. You see,
So that there's
right.
never, what I'm saying is because they are physically identifiable units, they're never exactly the same.
The thing is, in
So,
life,
but-
the thing is, also, yeah, in life, it washes out. You don't really care about whether it's
Yeah.
2 inches, 6
Yeah,
inches.
right.
It's up to the individual again, whether he cares or doesn't care. That's the point. So.
Okay.
So, I mean, in other words, if you have 5,000 paper clips all the same size in a bowl, I don't care which paper clip. Paper clips are homogeneous, and most people would be homogeneous. Somebody else, however, could be in sort of not their own section, something. Not somebody loves this paper clip because I don't know.
Going back to the ice cream for a moment.
Yeah.
At the restaurant, all the ice cream at the restaurant is one good. All the ice cream at Swenson's is another good.
Right.
That's what I was saying.
I understand that. I'm trying to understand the definition of good as it's going to relate to our discussion about economics. Because in other forms of economics, assume that ice cream is ice cream, and so it should have the same value everywhere to every person, correct? Whereas Austrians recognize that
price, anyway.
a good in a given transaction is completely different than
No, not completely. It could be.
can be
different.
based on the value
See,
judgment.
the point is that what you're doing is you're diminishing the role of the outside economist, the observer, who's trying to figure out what's going on. You're less able to figure out what's going on. They will manipulate the situation. So that he can't then say it's irrational. I see this. I'll give you an example. We had the first Austrian. Lisa.
I was just going to say, maybe the distinction is that you want to describe a good as a physical object. That's the only way an objective observer can describe it. That's the only way the observer economist could appreciate it. Ice cream is what is in this thing. While Austrian would say, you are observing all characteristics of it, all benefits of it, possible and otherwise, which is only something you can observe, or something that no economist.
Well, it depends on the individual. See, in most cases, Mill would be right. In most cases, I mean empirically, but it doesn't have to be. Let me give you an example. The first Austrian conference, the first modern Austrian conference outside of old Austria, first one in modern time, was held in 1973 at a wild place. 1974. I think it was 74. Summer of 1974. A crazy place called Royalton College of Vermont. Okay, it's in southeastern Vermont. It's a place which is more or less of the income and standard of living of 1850. The place is decaying. It's got nothing. It's got no supermarkets. It's got no movies. It's sort of like a slice out of the happily forgotten past. The college was a fake college. It was a weird town. It was a town. It was a college by an entrepreneur who was essentially a crook. So it was a fake college. They had a fake law school and a fake hotel. Anyway, it's a hilarious thing. I sometimes go into the anecdotes of this ambiance. So one of the things was that there were 2 grocery stores in this teeny town with a population of 400. It's like a Potemkin village. It was a big village green or common, and houses on the outside, and then nothing else beyond it. So like a Potemkin village, in the movies, you have these state houses, push them in for them. Nobody ever saw anybody in town, never saw a soul in that town, ever. At any rate, there were two grocery stores right across the street from each other, like 10 feet. And we observed that the prices in these stores are totally different. It's the same product. One store, I don't know, whatever, same cake of soap, charging 50 cents. The other store is 25 or something. So this is you're getting mind blown here. What the hell's going on? We're supposed to be economists. How do we analyze this? So we finally found one of the villagers there. And so, how come this is going on? How come Zeke's store over here is charging different prices than Jake's? So one of the things in this town, there are two groups of people. There's two groups of people in town. Each group hates each other's guts. One group only goes to Zeke's, the other group only goes to Jake's, and none of them will cross-compete. There are no marginal buyers who ship from one to the other. It's a non-competing grocery store. Well, so that happens. I mean, it's a little nutty, but I mean, it's part of life. So usually, the prices of the soap will be the same. Okay? In this peculiar situation where everybody's got values, where Zeke's, I must go to Zeke's, so going to Zeke's is somehow more important than the actual price of the product, then the price is different. So that's what happens. Generally, it's true, price is the same thing.